Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
We're going to talk about something different today, a little interesting here in that it could define you or your kids, definitely going to bring back some memories, and it's something that we can all relate to at pretty much any age. And because the Barbie movie is out right now, and number one by far, it's so funny, I have a friend who wants to go see it with her daughters, and today's Tuesday. They can't get tickets until next Wednesday. That's how big the movie is.
Wow, that is big.
We're talking about toys today. Toys and the impact they have on you in the past and now. He is an amazing psychologist. Gloria Vanderhorst is back with us. Welcome. How are you?
I am good today. I'm glad to be here. It'll be fun to talk about toys.
Yeah, as soon as you say that word, if you think for a second, memories come back. They definitely do.
Do you know one of the first toys I had was a hobby horse? Do you remember hobby horses?
I do.
It's a stuffed head of a horse on a stick.
Yeah.
And you would just, ride around, jump around.
Yeah, but it seemed real.
It did. It was a lot of fun.
My favorite toys were probably army men about this big or a cowboy, and they were, just total plastic. But my mom was a single mom. I didn't have a ton of toys. I would make accessories for them so they could do cool stuff.
That's great.
Maybe it's an outfit or, repel from some
right.
Right.
Use some string in order to help them repel.
Yeah, so you'd make your own toys essentially. But aside from that, it's probably a racetrack. Never really played a lot of games. I always got bored. I think it was maybe not creative enough. I don't know.
Well, maybe it wasn't. Games are interactive. So if you didn't have siblings, right? I had a ton of siblings, and so games were very popular in our household, from card games to board games, all kinds of games.
Yes, I didn't think of it that way. I have a twin sister. However, my kids now are 15, 17 and older. When I would play games with them, only because I think I follow every rule, but when it's regimented in fun, I don't know.
It reminds me of a story about my own daughter as a preschooler. I wanted to teach her to be a good sport. So in the course of playing games, lots of times parents will let the kids win just so that the kid will stay interested and have fun and just be silly. But I decided she was always a little proud of herself for winning. So I decided in Candyland, I was going to beat her periodically. And one night I beat her consistently and tried to encourage her to be a good sport. And she raises herself up as tall as she can at 3 years of age, puts her hands on her hips, and she says, "I'm glad I lost. I hope I lose again."
I don't know if she learned a lesson or if she's a sore loser. I'm trying to decide. Wow.
I'm not sure.
Do you think that what we played with toys, as kids, defined us in the future?
That's an interesting question, and maybe we could stand in line outside the Barbie movie and ask people, what's their association to Barbie? What did it mean to them? Why are they standing in line to watch this movie? I think toys definitely separate male and female children because we design toys to be sexually separate and different. I think the one exception to that I can think of is the Cabbage Patch Dolls that came out in the 70s.
Mm-hmm.
Remember those?
Yeah, I even think it was the 80s, to be honest.
Yeah, it may have been
Maybe
the early 80s
Hmm.
that those came out. And they were so neutral that both boys and girls ended up with Cabbage Patch Dolls.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting, though, as I think about it. Did the Cabbage Patch doll come with a birth certificate? And if it
Oh,
did,
I can't remember.
and if it did,
Uh-huh.
what was on the birth certificate?
I
I mean,
don't know.
let's do a Google here.
Yeah,
Um,
see if they did.
I don't know why. If it's not that, I'm thinking of another toy then, but let's find out.
Yeah, so the Cabbage Patch Dolls did tend to kind of lean one way or the other sexually, but not exclusively, not explicitly. So that I
Yeah.
remember a classroom full of kids bringing in their Cabbage Patch Dolls, and boys and girls were
Wow.
very proud of their Cabbage Patch Dolls.
So they did come with a birth certificate, and I'm trying to
Ah,
look at here and see what it says. Now, this is just one random one. So funny, it was born on my birthday. Uh, yeah,
that's good.
it has a deep something signature, and the name on this particular one is Cester, Cester, Harold. Now, I don't know if that means last name first, but
Uh-huh.
that would indicate what? That it is.
That's more of a masculine name to me.
And here's another one. Frank Mark is the name on the Cabbage Patch birth certificate.
Uh-huh.
This is so random. Um, and yeah, and here's another one, an adoption certificate. So I guess if you wanted to adopt, meaning you
Ah,
from a friend or something, I don't know.
all
It,
right. They were really advanced.
I guess we never even thought of that. Yeah, so those are just randomly a few here I found, but seems like they had gender associated names.
Yep, sounds that way. And kind of slightly different clothing as I recall, but the shape of them was so similar, and just a little bit of clothing would discern whether they were one sex or the other sex.
So I
But the thing that I was really impressed with is that I remember that boys had Cabbage Patch Dolls, the same as girls had Cabbage Patch Dolls. There wasn't this dichotomy between, I
right.
get a G.I. Joe and you get a Barbie. Uh,
Hmm.
it was, we both get Cabbage Patch Dolls and they look pretty much alike.
So that being said, um, I was at a gathering a couple of weeks ago, and there was a discussion because, and the parents are friends of friends, and
Mm-hmm.
their child is a boy and is playing with dolls, like that's
Right.
joy.
Uh-huh. Mm-hmm.
Uh, I don't know how deeper, it gets into the, situation, but they were kind of talking about it and wondering how they should deal with it. It's fairly recent. What are your thoughts on that?
I think they should leave the boy alone to play with whatever he wants to play with,
Okay.
really. And we do get nervous, we get anxious if a boy wants to walk around in mom's high heel shoes, right? Or try on one of her scarves.
Sure. Hmm.
But we need to be able in the future, in the next generation, to help people to stop that dichotomy
Wow.
of you're only allowed this kind of toy or this kind of behavior. You're only allowed these jobs, not other jobs, right? We've done it now with women, all right? They're allowed to serve on the front lines
Hmm.
in the services. They're allowed to do mechanical jobs and plumbing jobs. We've done it with women. We need to do it with men as well. They should be teaching preschool first grade, sixth grade, right? And we rarely find a male in the elementary school system. But think of that as a model for all of the boys that are in preschool and the elementary system. They don't see a man doing anything related to their learning, teaching them. It's all women. And that needs to shift if we really want to maintain a healthy society. So many things are going to be done for us with artificial intelligence.
Point.
That, you know, the sexualization of certain jobs just has to disappear for us. It just has to.
It's funny we're having this conversation, and I'm trying to recall where I heard it in another gathering, and I think it was around teachers that they were saying it's a real challenge. Like you'll never find a male as a not I want to say never, but rare kindergarten, first grade,
Right.
and they're challenged by it. Yeah, interesting.
Right. So even, you know, elementary schools might have a male come in to coach kids on beginning soccer,
Okay.
or run the gym for kids, but not in the classroom, not in the day-to-day interaction of I'm here to help you to learn reading, math, science, and be a model for you. Boys end up with only women in the first, 10, 11, 12 years old, and all I've interacted with are female teachers.
Now, it's been that way as far as I can remember.
Mm-hmm.
Why, psychologically or otherwise, why do you think it is that way?
Oh, I think, you know, this tradition goes back centuries.
Really? Okay.
Oh, yeah, centuries, right. We've had this separation of roles for centuries. And at some point, I'm sure it was valuable and productive, that it just fits survival.
Well, maybe because the role of the man was just working in a different area, and that's the only way it was done at that time, and that's who was available left to T and maybe war.
Well, let's go back to hunter-gatherer,
Okay.
right? So the female is pregnant. She's not going to go out hunting.
Right.
All right. She has a baby. She's nursing. She's not going to go out hunting. All right. So she's going to starve to death if there isn't a male going out hunting.
You never thought of it that way, but I find it fascinating that it went from then to now. It continued to, once it was set in stone, I guess, and it just continued all along there. Not too many things are like that, but how interesting.
Well, look at the difference in pregnancy and childcare. I think that's really critical, right? We can now choose when to get pregnant. We can choose, the sex of the child if we want to do that as well. And we have all kinds of support services for the infant once the infant is born. It's no longer just the responsibility of the man and the woman to take care of or provide for that child. We have tons of other services that free the female to be back in the workforce fairly quickly, and also enable the male to maintain his presence in the workforce as well. So our culture has provided other options and lots of flexibility.
When it comes to selecting a toy, let's say it's your kid, let's say somebody else's grandchild, whatever it might be, are there thoughts that you have in terms of picking something out?
Well, yes, right, in the sense that, being creative, I want something that's flexible, that the child can use to be creative, that they can challenge their imagination and that can challenge their dexterity as well. So, the fascinating thing, the reason I think Legos are so popular is that you can end up building anything you want. They come in kits, right? Where you're supposed to build the Titanic or a castle. But after you've built the Titanic or the castle and you take it apart,
Yep.
you have 1,000 Legos in a plastic bin,
And
right?
it's
You
endless.
can make anything you want.
Right. And it's all fun until you step on one.
Right.
It happens all the time. But yeah, and there's so much. Again, almost endless what you can do, even in terms of the accessories and things that it comes with, or you can buy, a kit to add to your kit. The motor,
Right.
the motor version, the car version, and then take that engine and then do whatever you want. So yeah, that's interesting. And Legos encourage imagination. Not to say
They
that
do.
don't, but
They do.
yeah.
Right. Art materials. Every household should have a really good collection of art materials. It's one of the reasons that also Play-Doh is so popular,
Yeah.
because you can create anything with it. You can stretch it out, you can block it up, you can mix it in colors. Things that challenge a child to use their own imagination are the things that you want to focus on, particularly if you're the person who's kind of outside the family bringing a gift to that child for a birthday or a holiday. You want to try to focus on things that are going to challenge their creativity, make them think.
Is it a bad thing to consider buying a child some kind of electronic connected device?
Well, those are incredibly popular,
Sure.
right? And we even start them in utero, right? We have these earphones to be put on mom's belly so that you can play Bach or Beethoven or jazz or anything you want for the infant in utero. And there's no going backwards in terms of devices that are electronic for kids. We're way past that. So it isn't whether they should. It is really, how do I monitor that? And how do I help the child use those devices responsibly? Because they are addictive.
Without a doubt. And you can control that, but I can say being quite geeky,
Mm-hmm.
friends that work for IBM. And I once said this to my friend. I said, you do what you do as a programmer. What would you suggest to put on your phone to monitor or block certain content?
Mm-hmm.
And I've used a whole bunch of them. I've had no success, issues going back to tech support. How come it does that? Does that? Just doesn't work. And my friend who works for IBM, higher level, says to me, yeah, you know what you got to do? I'm like, what? He's like, talk to your kids. That was it. He goes, nothing will prevent them from getting where they want to go. They're going
Right.
to figure it out. Or cell phone companies, especially Apple, don't like you messing with what they have. So
Mm-hmm.
they don't make it easy for the third party or other companies that have these filters and blocks to do an effective job. So yeah, you're right. It can't be fully monitored. But that being said, if you're going to pick out a toy, did you try and gravitate away from something electronic to encourage different type of creativity or stimulation?
I would definitely encourage that, because the electronic is always going to be there. Everybody has a collection of electronics in their house. We're
Sure.
not going to change that. But I would encourage people, if you're actually bringing something to a child, to think about challenging their intellect, to think about challenging their creativity, to expose them the things that they're not going to find on their electronic device.
And I think we always want to feel like our kid is on the cutting edge because that's going to help their education and growth and learning and all of that. But life isn't just electronic. We still, to the day, when you sit down to eat, you grab a knife, a fork, and a spoon.
So far, we haven't injected it into you.
Right. But it's still, there's motor skills involved. There's just basic stuff going on there that always was. So yeah, why not get the child something that's not electronic? And sometimes there's some pushback, but you know what? If you think about what they like, maybe you'll come up with something that works, that's not digital.
Right. And hopefully, when you sit down to the table, your cell phones are some other place.
Mm-hmm.
They're not on the table next to you. And there's opportunity for conversation and laughter and just enjoying each other. We have so little time for that to happen in modern families. Modern families are programmed to be busy almost constantly. Many modern families really don't ever sit down to dinner anymore, which is shocking on one level, and it misses a golden opportunity for emotional growth and social development.
And probably the only time they connect is maybe on a weekend or during a vacation, like truly connect.
Right.
Hmm.
Yeah, we need to invest more time in spending time with our children.
Yeah. And
that's what's going to pay off.
What you said before about the communication, I remember now when I was a little bit older, probably 11 or so, one of my favorite toys was a walkie-talkie.
Oh, yeah.
And then you were able to talk with somebody else, your friend or whatever. But then sometimes, other kids in the neighborhood had it and you were on the same frequency. Right. You'd hear them. And then when I was probably, I don't know, 14, somewhere around there, CB radio became popular.
Mm-hmm.
So now you could talk to anybody. Yeah,
anybody, right.
Region.
All over the world.
Well, not on CB radio. That was local. You're talking ham radio.
A ham radio you could do, right.
And you could, as a kid, have, I believe in some of the licenses, ham radio license, but you have to take a test but CB radio, no, you just mail away, get a license, and then you were on the air. But you would talk to people in your neighborhood because everybody was doing it at the time. So it'd be like, yeah, where do you live? And then you didn't want to give out your address. So, at the corner, not far from Elm. Okay, great. And usually it was people your age. Of course, it was all ages on there. But that, I guess, was almost like social media where there was dialogue, connection, and to a degree, some of the same problems that you have on social media today with teenagers where there's confrontation, there's nastiness, there's, could be bullying, even on back
teasing and bullying, right.
It was all there. It was all there. So there were some parallels, it's just not the visual. And stuff.
Well, on another difference too is that you guys were at least talking with each other.
There's a point.
If you look at two teenagers today, they can be sitting next to each other, each one of them on their phone, and they're texting each other.
Yeah.
Which is just mind-boggling.
My daughter texts me from her room.
Yeah.
So you work with anybody of any age, pretty much, and whether it's children, adolescents, adults, even seniors. We talked last week about seniors nowadays, and offer so much insight. Your website is your name, right, Gloria?
It is. It's www.drvanderhorst.com.
And a free consult. Do you offer a couple of minutes if somebody has a question?
I do. I talk to people on the phone.
Wait a minute. Whoa. Wait a minute. You actually talk to people?
I talk to people. Yes. I don't text.
Yeah, I do, but I actually sometimes say when I get somebody, I talked to somebody before on the phone, and I actually called and I said, I can text you. I'm driving. I want to talk. Yeah, it's going to be so much quicker. And
so much easier.
Yes, and we'll figure it out. Gloria, always great talking with you, and look forward next time we can.
Nice to talk with you, Steve. Thank you.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.